So if you've ever considered that you might be iron deficient or anemic, or you're struggling with low energy or fatigue, and you've wondered why, this video could contain incredibly valuable information for you in figuring out what that might be, whether it is iron deficiency, whether it is anemia. So stick with me as we go through some biology facts. Welcome back to Cycle Sync with G. This episode we're talking about iron deficiency, anemia, basically based on something I've been researching and looking into myself personally recently. And I heard Stacey Sims bring it up on a recent podcast, which I'm going to reference a bit later in this episode as well. So as a menstruating woman, obviously we lose blood every month. And if you look up iron deficiency and what causes iron deficiency and how it can come about, it's through blood loss. So essentially menstruating women are at high risk of iron deficiency. So what does iron deficiency actually feel like? It's this low, drained, lethargic, out of breath, possibly dark circles underneath your eyes, dead kind of feeling, which as a menstruating woman, it's very common that you are, or you're quite likely to experience this unless you're incredibly vigilant with your red meat consumption around your period, or your body's just great at replenishing iron stores naturally. But for most women, monthly blood loss, especially if you have really heavy periods or you're incredibly active, can come with this fatigue feeling. But I'm going to quickly blow some minds here too. Iron deficiency and anemia are not the same thing. They're both terms that are kind of thrown around together and used interchangeably, but anemia refers to the deficiency in healthy red blood cells, or the hemoglobin content of the red blood cells, which leads to a reduced oxygen carrying capacity, which is what then causes the fatigue and the drained feeling or the exhaustion. So as that can sound similar to iron deficiency refers specifically to the deficiency of the nutrient iron, but you could have an iron deficiency but not necessarily be anemic if your hemoglobin levels are normal. And anemia is not always caused by a deficiency in iron. It can also be B12, or folate deficiencies can cause anemia. But then you do have this specific iron deficiency anemia, which is maybe the one that people are kind of referring to when they say, oh, I've got anemia, because they've got low iron, because that's what makes it difficult for the body to produce red blood cells. So you've got reduced oxygen carrying capacity, and essentially that is what causes this drained feeling. So hopefully that's not too confusing and actually clears up some confusion, because they can be confused sometimes, and it's important to mention because both do cause this kind of low energy and fatigued feeling, because they both impact oxygen carrying capacity, but they're not necessarily the same thing. So I just wanted to make that one clear. And in this video, we're going to specifically talk about iron deficiency. So say you are experiencing this kind of fatigue, drained, tired, lethargic, and you suspect it might be something to do with your iron levels. It's not something else. It's not sleep. It's not stress. So you go to the doctor, or you just take yourself for a blood test. Your blood tests come back and you've checked your iron and everything. What is normal for iron? We're going to talk about the normal iron levels, what's low iron, and this is actually a very interesting point that I want to talk about that Stacey Sims brought up in this podcast with Steve Bartlett. So what she described is that over the years, what was normal then is very different to what the normal is now. And that's as a result of the quality of diet that's drastically decreased, which means that we're seeing so many more nutrient deficiencies. So the reference ranges of what is actually normal for iron and all other minerals and vitamins and nutrients is a lot lower than it was and probably should be. But with something like iron and all nutrients actually, like if you go and your blood test result comes back and it's within this grey bracket or whatever of normal, and you're like, yeah, but I feel rubbish. And that's because these normal levels that if you read actual science papers, and back in the day or whatever, a normal iron was 50. Now, normal 26. And what they're considering low iron, or something to actually worry about, is 12, which is shockingly low, considering that 50 was normal. So yeah, if your blood tests come back and your iron is 30 and the doctor's saying it's normal, it's not normal, it's not healthy. So if you're struggling with those symptoms and want to look into your iron, and your iron is 30, try and up your iron. I'm going to talk about supplements and iron-rich foods in a moment, and just see how that feels. And this is, I guess, where doing all my own research and everything helped me so much, because sometimes, what a doctor is going to tell you, or what's normal, or what some science paper saying new compelling evidence, blah, 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 you just kind of got to be a bit skeptical and smart sometimes. But that's why I created this channel, to share everything that I've learned and the knowledge, and hopefully unconfuse and unfrustrate some situations that you might find yourself in. So back to iron. If you're an athlete, or you train regularly, or you're feeling this low fatigue, drained feeling, and you get your iron tests back, make sure that it's around 50 to 100. So how to increase your iron levels? Because iron supplements are a weird one because they either make you constipated as fuck, or you just don't know like how much is too much, whether it's actually being absorbed, when to take it, all of that. So I'm gonna break down as much as I know. So number one, firstly with iron, you want it in its most bioavailable form. That's gonna ensure that it's absorbed into the body. Number two, you wanna take it every other day. 3, always combine it with vitamin C. If it's heme iron, less important, but non-heme, which is the more plant-based source, which I'm going to get onto, is more important with food. But if you want to ensure iron absorption, always consume it with vitamin C. And the last very important point is that iron should always be consumed on an empty stomach. So best either first thing in the morning or an hour before food or 2 hours after food. So the most bioavailable forms are going to be your carbonyl iron with vitamin C, which is used and is extremely efficient in treating and preventing anemia and iron deficiency anemia. And the other one is iron glycinate. Both are slow releasing, which is good. Both again on an empty stomach, so an hour before food or 2 hours after food. If your iron supplement doesn't already have vitamin C in it, have some vitamin C with the iron supplement, and that's all on your empty stomach, 100 milligrams or more, and that's been shown to increase iron absorption by 67%. And you should notice some differences within 14 days. Some might notice differences in energy and things before 14 days, but 14 days is the kind of general. If you're treating a severe nutrient deficiency, then it can take up to 3 months to replenish the stores. So kind of be patient, but you want to be supplementing for about 2 weeks before you really know whether it's working or not. And I'm not going to get into exact dosages and quantities of iron because that's very much dependent on your levels of iron that would have come back from your blood test. So that's not my place to recommend dosages. And again, I also never want to rule out the fact that there might be a root cause as to why your iron was low in the first place. If it wasn't your menstrual cycle or losing blood naturally, what I'm going to talk about at the end of the video might have something to do with this too, so stick around. But all I'm saying for now is that if you get your iron checked and it's 26 and they're saying that's normal but you still feel flat, that's not normal. Try and get it up to 50 with an iron supplement. That's when you can or should ask your doctor for dosages, because that will be specific to how deficient you were. But try and get it up to 50 or higher. I also always like to look at food unless it's super severe and supplements are necessary. I like to kind of go more natural holistic route and look at increasing the consumption of foods that are high or super high in that nutrient itself. So food sources of iron are primarily red meat as well as organ meat, so specifically livers like beef and chicken livers. But yeah, your steak and like beef and meat, lamb, ox, kangaroo, bison, all of those red meats are going to give you a mega dose of this bioavailable iron as well as a little dose of zinc too. And then for your plant-based sources, those are going to be your non-heme, and that's much more important. They're combined with vitamin C, but those are your dark leafy greens, so spinach, chard, kale, collard greens. Lentils and legumes, also a really great source of iron, especially chickpeas, brown lentils, beluga lentils, kidney beans, all of those. Tofu and soybeans and edamame are also pretty good. Some nuts and seeds as well, so pumpkin seeds and sesame seeds are high in iron as well as zinc. Quinoa, amaranth, those are also great. They're kind of grains but kind of seeds, no one really knows. And then dark chocolate and cocoa. So those are your non-heme plant sources of iron. So if you're plant-based, that's what you got to go for. And yeah, again, look at combining it always with a source of vitamin C. Stacey Sims also mentioned cooking in an iron skillet or an iron-based pan, using olive oil in your foods, and those are going to help with iron absorption and just increasing the iron content of the food as well. And then the last point I want to bring up, which is something incredibly important to consider when you're supplementing with iron or looking at increasing your iron or wondering why your iron might be so low but you're taking iron supplements and you're eating all these iron-rich foods. When it comes to iron and iron absorption and its homeostasis, or basically the regulation of iron levels in the body, we naturally have a peptide hormone produced in the liver called hepcidin. Hepcidin is essentially the traffic controller, which makes sure there's not too much iron floating around in the body, but there's enough for hemoglobin synthesis when we need it. Hepcidin is responsive to inflammation. So during states of acute and chronic inflammation, levels of hepcidin increase, leading to a decrease in serum iron levels as hepcidin levels rise. Exercise is an example of acute inflammation. So what I'm saying is that exercise is going to increase the amount of hepcidin in your blood, which is going to essentially decrease the absorption of iron. So you might think that, like, yeah, you've just been training and you want to get some steak and some iron back in. It might not be the best time to have that steak because of the serum levels of hepcidin. Instead, rather have that steak at night if you trained in the morning, or steak for breakfast if you're going to train later in the day, if you're looking at increasing your iron by eating that steak and it's not just your dose of protein. So that's just something else you want to consider, is this 5-hour kind of window for menstruating women. It's 5 hours, same with men, it's 5 hours, which is this window where hepcidin is going to decrease the serum levels of iron and also lead to it not being absorbed as well. So I just found this information really interesting, especially as it's very common with women, very common actually, that women will always talk about their iron levels or fatigue and I'm feeling so drained, I think I might be anemic, or I think I've got iron deficiency. It's really, really, really important that you make sure that your iron levels are normal, and please not normal as in 26, normal as in 50 or above, and that you're getting enough iron-rich foods every day. For women, that's 18 milligrams per day, which I read on the internet, but it's probably a bit higher than that, if I'm honest. But basically, especially around your late luteal phase, when your tissue is building, around your period, and just after your period to restock the iron stores, you want to really focus on those iron-rich foods to prevent fatigue and drained feeling and essentially enhance and optimize the rest of your cycle. So you're not winding up with this low energy and fatigue and not being able to make the most of your estrogen when it's rising in the follicular phase, when you want to be going out and doing stuff and you're not feeling drained and tired. So I hope that was interesting, not too confusing. Let me know if you've got any questions in the comments or DM me. I've been a little bit quiet on here recently. I know I've been working on some exciting things behind the scenes, new website, new lots of things. So I'm sorry for the not very recent uploads, but I also feel like I want to upload quality over quantity on here. So when there's something that I feel like strongly about and I've done lots of research around, those are the kind of videos that I want to share and upload and put on this channel. So keep your eyes peeled for new and exciting things coming very soon, and get your iron levels checked, get a blood test if you are considering that you might be fatigued and it's as a result of low iron. But yeah, now you know that 50 is normal, 26 is not normal, and you've got some iron-rich foods there to boost your iron levels. Hope that was helpful. See you next time.